If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. No, wait. It's free. There's creation tools that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. No, wait, did you hear me? It is everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome to Grace Talks, produced by Grace Media Productions and hosted by T-Dub Entertainment. Grace Talks is a podcast that informs and inspires to help you grow gracefully. Here you can enjoy great conversations, experience special guests, and encounter grace moments. Tune in now for an all-new episode of Grace Talks. Thank you again for joining us here at Grace Talks, and we have quite a topic for discussion today. Today's episode is all about relationships. The importance of family relationships, business relationships, romantic relationships, and friendly relationships. How do they impact you and your life? On today's episode, we're so excited to have one who knows a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly of relationships. He has experienced the highs and the lows and can tell us about everything in between. Please help me welcome our special guest, Hervin Catchings. Welcome, Hervin. How are you doing, sir?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me. I'm actually excited to be here tonight.
Were you shocked that you're excited? I mean, what's happening here?
You know,
You're supposed to be excited every time you talk to me.
being transparent, I did not do my due diligence of homework because of relationships. And
You're starting already. You got to give the people a moment to know you.
so, to hear it, point blank, bottom line, this about relationships, I'm like, wasn't quite ready for that one. Not that I wasn't quite ready for the experiences to talk about, just wasn't quite ready for the topic. But all is well. We're here, and I hope this relationship can last after this.
How was your day?
My day was fantastic.
So tell me, before we get into the meat of discussion, what's been happening in your life lately? What's going on with you?
Over the course of the last month, yet another business venture, Intelligent Inspections LLC. We're now located in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, but the goal is to go nationwide. And God gave me the vision of Intelligent Inspections. Actually, I got the final piece of the puzzle the third Sunday of last month while in the pulpit.
Okay.
So, being introduced to the inspection business is, like any other business venture, you're not familiar with things. So I did a little research on it. I'm like, maybe, but I needed a name, and I needed to make sure that I could stand up to what the name was. So I went in prayer about it.
Okay.
And the Lord answered me in the pulpit and said, your name is Intelligent Inspections. I'm like, okay. So at that point, everything around me, everything about me, everybody connected to me had to have an intelligent mindset, an intelligent thought process, or just be intelligent in every move that they make. to be a part of this to make it grow the way that God has given me the vision.
So basically, you haven't been doing much at all, just chilling, walking around the house.
No, actually, not only did we launch the business, we got a contract immediately after launching, getting my business license in the state of Alabama, getting my insurance, my business accounts, bank accounts set up. I started operating just with the name as if I was a multi-million-dollar business.
Well, that's cool.
Uh,
Let me
within
let me
seven
get along.
hours,
Let me get
with,
along. Let me get
within
along.
7 hours, we were came with an idea. The name was in place. The business license was purchased. The LLC was purchased, and the next day the business account was open. As of today, I have completed 9 assignments with intelligent inspections, looking to grow even more.
Well, that's great to hear. That's great to hear that you're keeping busy, you're continuously growing, and you know, post COVID, as we like to say now, I think that's really, really good that we're finding new ways to reinvent ourselves, because it's clear that the government don't care about us or our jobs don't care about us. So to go out, to launch out into the deep and take a faith walk of a business venture is essential in this day and time. I just feel that. So let's see. Talking to Hervin Catchings, how 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 did we meet? Wow. Many years of knowing you, sir, as you are affectionately known as Unc. Uh how do you recall our first encounter?
I do.
Don't
Was
embarrass.
it Lagos Christian Fellowship at the time? Was holding service at Gazer Missionary Baptist Church. I was living in Denver,
Okay.
and an event was taking place after service, and you were one of the only people who knew. And when I walked in, you looked at me from head to toe and said, "Man, I want to be on your level one day." Yes, I do remember our original meeting.
Wow. That was so many years ago. I had forgotten just how long. Wow. Memories, huh? At
Yes,
that point,
yes,
okay.
yes.
So how are we really connected? How did we connect, or how are we connected, if you would, through this relationship, the brotherly family, from family, extended family, spiritual. How are we connected? How would you say you would describe our connection?
Our connection comes in many different assets. The way we were originally connected was through my brother, Dr. Hervin Catchings, who faithfully tells the story. The first time Terrence came to my
Come
house,
on,
I knew that we wasn't gonna be able to get rid of it. He walked straight to the refrigerator and opened up the refrigerator. What we got to eat? So that was the original connection. And as we got to know each other even more so through ministry, and then I wind up after Katrina. I was in Indianapolis. I had worked on the Lucas Oil Stadium project, worked that until completion,
wow.
and then I decided to relocate to Houston, not knowing what to expect. And you open your heart, but more so you open your home to me. And I remember before I even got to the third floor of your apartment, because I talked about you for living on the third floor, I told you
What
my
did you
game
say?
plan.
What did you say?
I said, man, did you have to move all the way up there? They had nothing downstairs. You had to go all the way up there. So, you know,
Yeah, exercise is important.
so being in the telecom field, we made sure that we had some cable TV before I even entered the apartment. Thank God we don't do those things anymore, and you can't really anymore. Um, but the plan that I gave you even before crossing the seal of your door, God had blessed those plans to perfection. And even before the allotted time that you had given me, I was already moved out and gone and moved on my own. Eventually opening up a moving business. Who's Moving You was the name of the moving company. So because of that, it put me in the first mindset of business. But because of you and how you conduct and carry yourself, I was able to learn a lot and to move forward. And to, as that relationship grew, I became your personal mechanic. I became your listening ear. I became your security. Uh, a lot of things.
I was grateful for
But
security.
more importantly, the relationship that we share between Christ
Yeah.
has been the one that has been most solid in everything that we've been through.
Yes, that is essential for, I think, everybody living in Texas to have mechanic and security. It is an imposed thing. I'm really starting to appreciate having a transmission. I want to say that, especially living in Austin. I don't know how many times you've been to Austin, but Austin, Houston, I just want to say thank God for transmission and take care of your transmission at all times. And if you need a mechanic, don't call Irvin. Um,
Please don't.
he is not in that business anymore. Okay, so let's get into it. I want to start with family relationships and dealing with your background and where you originated, where how you came to be. I had a recent podcast that dealt with understanding purpose and understanding how you are important or you had to happen. And so in knowing that, I would like the audience to understand who you are as we go through the walk of relationships of the various levels. Tell me, what was your childhood like? What was school life like? What was the family life, the neighborhood like? If you could kind of give us a visual into the past, a summary, if you will, of what childhood and growing up becoming, being or becoming Irvin Catchings.
I'm going to try to keep my eyes from sweating, my eyeballs from sweating.
Okay.
And I think this is very, very important because a lot of times we see people where they are, not understanding how they got there.
Yeah.
My father was killed when I was 30 months old. Most children, um, and we were separated from my mother. I don't want to get too far into detail with that. But most children, when the household is broken up, winds up with their mother side of the family. For me and my brother, we wind up with my father's side of the family.
Hmm.
My paternal grandparents in their mid 50s took us, raised us. Um, I was always taught be better than the clothes you wear. I was always told to, you don't, two things you didn't have to do is look or smell like you were poor. I had a mostly happy childhood. And I tell the story from the pulpit how me and my brother, Dr. Hervin Catchings, grew up with a drug problem.
Hmm.
Yes, we grew up with a drug problem as kids. We had a grandmother who drug us to every church in the city. So with that, the
Come
foundation,
on. Was it really that often?
um, a now deceased aunt, Georgia McMorris, who you know,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Georgia teased us and said me and Renard had been to more wakes and funerals than we had been to birthday parties, but it was the actual truth. I learned the city of New Orleans, uptown, downtown New Orleans, East, West Bank, Kennemetery. I learned the city by where the churches were located. If you told me where a church, gave me a church name, I could tell you what part of town it was.
Wow.
So that's how I learned the city.
Okay.
Because We had a grandmother that didn't send us to church, she brought us. She didn't send us to Sunday school, she brought us. Their foundation in Christ was deep.
Hmm.
We also had a grandmother. It could be the pastor's anniversary. It could be the choir's anniversary. It could be the usher's annual day. When she brought us into the church, she asked the usher at the door, "Who's the MC?" Tell them I got my boys here, and put them on program.
Now,
So
I had never heard that part of the story before.
yes, yes. So we were known, and even Pastor Fred Luda at the Franklin Avenue Baptist Church, who has the largest Southern Baptist church in the world. He grew up as our Sunday school teacher. We were even known to everybody in the gospel fellowship as the Lil Catchings boys. But at the time, we were little.
Hmm.
I'm now 6'2" and a half, closer to 300. I ain't little no more, but we were known as the Lil Catchings boys and had I wouldn't say a big reputation around the city, but we were known where we went and was expected to be on program.
Okay.
As we got off into teenage years, I got out of the way of my grandparents' teaching. I got more worldly because I found a way to manipulate the home.
Well,
My brother,
was this
sir?
around the time? I apologize, but I just wanted to check the timeline. Was this the time of you experiencing football and sports at that time that you're saying that you were wayward, if you will?
Yes, I utilize sports to get out of going to church. If I got practice, I ain't got to go to church.
Okay.
I was at that time burnt out and churched out because I was forced into it. It wasn't a great love or desire that I had for the Lord because I really didn't know who the Lord was. I just knew I got tired of everywhere I went. I had to sing, I had to pray, I had to have a speech, a poem, or something, and I got tired of that. And
Okay.
as you get into peer pressure, middle school age, you start to look and start thinking about what everybody else is doing and then trying to get away from, your upbringing. And I went through that part.
So football or sports in general
Football and
was a
basketball,
favorite thing
yes.
to do.
Sports itself was favorite.
Okay. Okay. So besides grandma and church, who did you spend the most time with?
It got to a point where my high school years, a cousin that's more of a mother figure to me today,
Hmm.
and I hope she don't mind me calling her name.
You don't have to if you don't
Well,
feel comfortable.
maybe it's important
Okay.
because maybe she needs to know how important she, and I think she does. But Shonda Hawkins,
Okay.
she took the role as, even though she was an older cousin, as the big sister because I had no big brother.
Hmm.
I had nobody to tell me right from wrong.
Okay.
So she picked up the mantle as best that she could and kind of leaded me and guided me. I remember, think my junior year in high school, and I stopped by her house with my report card, and she asked me for it, and I gave it to her. And her words was, "Son, what do you go to school for? To read the books and read the lunch and eat the books?" And I'm like, "How?" She said, "Because that's what your grades saying. You reading the the lunch and eating the books. So you got to do better." But she was that person, even till this day, who kind of stirred me in the right direction as best that she could.
Okay. Okay. Um. So in spending time with the cousin mother figure and grandma and church, you developed a relationship with a deeper relationship with grandma. You developed a deeper relationship with your cousin. Developed a relationship, of course, I'm sure, spending all that time with your brother, and then a relationship with the church house or the church houses.
Yes.
um, I'm still dealing in the adolescent range of time. Do you feel that you had experienced at that time anything that turned you off or hurt you or scarred you concerning any type of relationship at that time? at high school, you liking girls, da 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 da, things of that nature. Had anything, I mean, from home to school to the streets, anything hurt you at that time?
Let me give this viewing audience a sneak preview.
And listening audience.
There's a book coming forth that's entitled Rejected from Birth.
Okay.
Not knowing who my mother was, to a sense of abuse from my grandparents, to being ridiculed in school because I didn't wear the best clothes, because of my last name. The nickname Ketchup came from people mocking me from the last name Catchings.
Wow.
And it actually turned me to learn how to fight and learn how to fight fast and good. Because when you mocked me, I already felt a sense of rejection,
Hmm.
worthlessness, to being told by family members your mama left you for a pack of cools.
What?
It was deep. And to be hearing a lot, you'll never mount up to anything, you'll never be anything. You get to a point in life where you start believing those things.
Yeah.
So as I got into high school, I could have excelled more had I had a better support system, but I'm not complaining about where God placed me.
Hmm.
Because as I come to understand who I am today, like the title of your book, it had to happen. So I'm better today because of those experiences. Not to say that the scars still not there, not to say that I still, even at 57 years old, I hurt from childhood things. But I know you want to be at a certain place, but let me move forward to February 2nd of 2020. And I didn't know that day. I wasn't thinking about the day. Me and my mom had rekindled our relationship as mother and son for the umpteenth time. And I was waiting on her to pick me up to go to worship with her that morning. And that morning I got up and I started praying and I said, Lord, the condition, and mind you, at this point, I'm homeless. I wasn't on the street. I wasn't, underneath the bridge, but I did not have my own address. And I went into meditation that morning and the Lord led me to John, the 5th chapter. And right now, today, I've been preaching for 21 and a half years, been ordained for 11. I had never seen this angle taken out on that scripture about the man at the pool of Bethesda. The question was, who dropped him off? Because the Bible never talked about him being born there.
Wow.
Who dropped him off?
Wow.
And instantly I related to where in life had I been dropped off.
That's deep.
And the Lord brought me back to as far as I could remember my early ages in my childhood. And it's like I was sitting in the living room, but I was watching a video of my life. And everything and everybody who had hurt me, the Lord showed it to me.
Whoa.
And I cried till I could not cry no more. And when I had no more tears to cry, I said, Lord, now what? And the Lord instantly brought me to the 12th verse. And he said, the 12th verse says, go and sin no more unless something worse happens to you. And at that moment, I knew that I was cleansed. And the Spirit revealed to me that every tear that I shed was cleansing. And I had finally in my life dealt with everything of my past. I had faced everything in my past. And my challenge was to go back and to apologize everybody that I could for whom I hurt. And I've done that to the best of my ability. But I'm a different person. And later that day, I found out that it was February 2nd. And then it dawned on me, 2020 forward, 2020 backwards. So that is my complete cleansing date. So from that date, I have been remarried. I'm happy today. life is a challenge. It like the song says, like a jungle. Sometimes it make you wonder how
Hmm.
you keep from going under. It is a challenge, but in the same token, I'm grateful to God for each and every experience because that has made me who I am today.
Well, thank you for sharing that testimony and taking that journey backwards and then forwards for us. In our next segment, we'll discuss even further dealing with romantic relationships and how those. Y'all stay tuned. That's all I can say. Just stay tuned.
Yes, yes.
So, I would like to know about romantic relationships. We dealt with family relationships and how important they were and how they've impacted pretty much all of your years here on earth. So let's go to romantic relationships. Uh if we can just go back for a moment, can you tell me about your dating path or the beginning of experiencing dating? What was dating life like for you?
I could start with high school, but high school, I was two things. I was a gangster. I tried my best to live that gangster life so the girls liked the bad boys.
Okay.
So that was easy. But my first real relationship actually came in Gonzales, Louisiana, to a young lady actually who bore my son, Junior, little Irvin.
Okay.
So how we originally got together, when we first met, she had a 6-month old daughter.
Hmm.
And that baby's father made the royal mistake of calling my mama's house looking for her. And at that point, I was liking her, but it wasn't all that, you know.
Hmm.
But at that point, I made it my business to make her for me, let him know she was mine. And not only was she off limits, his child was too. So I didn't just take his woman, I took his family. And eventually I fell in love with her. And, we talked about being married and all that stuff, but it never manifested to that.
Okay.
And eventually we went our separate ways, and a lot of that was self inflicted.
Okay. Do you remember, what was she your first love? Or do you remember the first time you fell in love, if you will?
I would say she was my first love. She was the
Okay.
first person I grown to love her. So
Okay.
it wasn't like love at first sight, but I grown to love her. And it's just one of those things when you find yourself loving somebody and y'all have love for each other, but to be compatible in every area, that wasn't our destiny.
Okay. How long were you all in a relationship for?
Oh, 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we the thing was at the time when we got together again, she had a 6-month-old baby, and I think I grew more to the child than I did to the mother. And even when I wanted to leave the relationship, I felt more obligated to being this child's father because at this point, I was the only father that this baby knew.
Okay.
So I felt more obligated and being obligated because we not only lived in Gonzales, Louisiana, but I moved to Denver, Colorado and moved them up to Denver with me. After I got myself situated and settled, I actually sent for them and brought them up to Colorado with me. So this was long lasting.
Okay. So 6 or 7 years, man, that's a long time. What caused y'all to end things?
I eventually game
I'm sorry, say that again.
to the dope game, to drugs. I
Okay.
eventually got into the point where I started selling crack cocaine.
Okay.
And it got to a point where no matter how much I had, I'd sell out. And one day, curiosity got the best of me in the midst of me and her knockdown dragouts. And I said, man, what about this stuff that people want? And I actually tried it. And I became addicted to the drug that I once sold. And based upon the problems that we were already having, the drug addiction actually superseded everything else. And it drew us, instead of bringing us closer together, the money kept us together, but eventually the addiction eventually drew us apart.
Okay.
And when I did recover from the addiction, uh just decided to it was best that I continue to move forward with my life rather than going backwards, because at this time my addiction actually brought me to prison.
Okay.
Um and during the time I was incarcerated, I let her know, go on with your life. I don't want to talk about what my sentence was, but I had a very lengthy sentence by the grace of God. That conviction was overturned and I was, exonerated for that crime.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at that point in my life, I felt like we had outgrown each other. We had moved our lives in the different directions, and I just moved on with my life.
Now, that's pivotal. You said something. We had grown, and developed in our own life. People have to be sensitive enough, I feel, to recognize that. You
Yes.
have to be strong enough and sensitive enough to recognize that, because you then start to beat a dead horse, right? Instead of growing together, you're tolerating. Instead of celebrating, you're tolerating.
I was asked Thanksgiving Day, what is the key to a successful marriage or relationship? The first thing I tell anybody, first of all, when you talk in marriage, prepare for the marriage and not the wedding. Too much time and effort is spent into the celebration of one day, with not enough thought process, time, and effort spending into what you're about to do for the rest of your life. Most importantly, marry your best friend. Me and my wife got a deal going on right now.
Now, see, you jumping ahead now, man. You
I
supposed to. You
I
supposed
have
to.
to I have to put this point out there.
Okay.
You have to be honest regardless of consequences. Honesty is the best policy. If you cheated, hey, I cheated. Whatever you did, you have to be honest about it, because one thing about an honest answer, it is easily forgiven than a lie. Because once it comes out that that was a lie, that trust factor is immediately broken. One thing has been known in the street, in the church, in my life, in love. I'm not saying this just because I'm on this podcast. I'm 100% real all the time.
Hmm.
It is what it is. Either you like it or you don't, but you know what you're getting. You
Well,
ain't gonna pull the wrap off me and get something different. I am who I am.
I'm gonna amen that point, because Lord Jesus. Okay. But you kind of dove into my next phase that I wanted to discuss, and that was current life or current romantic relationship. And so you mentioned the idea of being married currently. Um, can you give us a little history on that? How that evolved? How did you meet? What was the defining factor that you said, okay, let's take this and go deeper. Let's get married. Let's make marriage. Let's make marriage our life, our lifestyle, versus let's just have a fling. What did Give us some background to that, if you will.
At the time, I was dealing with four different females in four different parishes in the state of Louisiana. I was slick enough to keep them apart, and it was easy because they lived in four different parishes. But as I started to grow in ministry, the Lord convicted me that, you can't be the rooster in the hen house.
I knew, uh, listening audience, I wanted to prepare y'all that this man is from Louisiana and he grew up around old people. So you're going to hear some cliches that may not make sense, but just bear with him. He'll explain it. And that was one. Please explain that.
You're not going to be standing in the pulpit on a Sunday, standing before my people on a Wednesday night teaching, and leaving out the pulpit, leaving from amongst my people as a leader, go and do what you want on a sinful stand. Because it instantly brought me back, as we talked about earlier, to February 2nd. I didn't want nothing worse to happen to me.
Okay.
So I went in prayer and I said, Lord, at the appointed time. Now, mind you, my wife was not, well, she was in there, but she wasn't as deep as the rest of them.
Okay.
So I said, Lord, you show me who's for me. And over a 2-month period, everybody just started falling off for whatever reason. There's some things I will tolerate. There's some things I will not tolerate in a relationship. You have to understand the boundaries that you are able to handle. Some things you're going to have to take. Make sure that you're able to handle these things. So in the deep part of my prayer life, I was in New Orleans to preach. And where I always stay with family members, for whatever reason, there was a very, very uncomfortable feeling for me. And it was like the Lord told me, get out of here. So what I did, I called my grandmother. And well, I'm sorry, I texted her and I said, can I come spend the night? And she texted me back in bold letters, yes. And then she instantly called me and she said, you have to preach here tomorrow? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, boy, come over here. She said, because you in my spirit. So when I pulled up to my grandmother's house, I parked my car, I walked in the door. I'm not even in the door 10 seconds. And there's a knock on the door. So I'm instantly startled how somebody walked right behind me and I didn't see him.
Whoa.
So, and I'm messed up because, growing up in New Orleans, you are aware of your surroundings at all times.
That's why I said, whoa.
So when I turned around to answer the door, that was my wife. So I wouldn't say excitement, but I don't know what I did to knock the curtain right down off my grandmother's door. And of course, she clowning me now. They got a young lady there. She trying to make me look bad. Boy, get your stupid, silly self out the way. You done broke my stuff. And the young lady instantly said, hey, I have a 17-year-old son in the car. He'll come and fix it. I'm like, nah, man, I got this. I got this. I got this. She was there to pick up a package.
Okay.
She had never, ever, ever been to my grandmother's house, even though her sister lived 4 doors down and had been living there for the last 20 plus years. I knew her sister. I knew her niece. Never knew her.
Wow.
So, of course, the box was basically the box the size of a laptop computer.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no. But I had to carry the box to her car. I had to show her that there are still some gentlemen in this world.
Wow.
And what I did then, I said, look, I'm a little old school. I'm going to give you my number. I'm going to ask that you take it. Now, if you don't call me, no harm, no foul. I don't know you anyway. But if you call me, there's something there. But I felt something, but did not know what it was. So she called me about 12 a.m. Mind you, I have a 10 a.m. service to preach at. I ain't got a clue of what the Lord saying to these people. And we talked to about 4:45
In the morning.
in the morning. And it was in-depth conversation as if I had been knowing this young lady all my life. And I went on and preached, and we spent time together, and just kind of hung out. Didn't know if she was a man or woman. Let me put that out there, and that was not like me. That was not like me. If I see you and I want you, I'm gonna get you. I knew what to say to do what I had to do,
Right.
but it was a difference. And I started my own business pace setter, and I was working with that, and I showed her my books, and she bust out laughing. She was like, "Baby, you need some help." And I said, "Well, I'm going to make you my office manager. You won't have no access to the money, but you can take care of everything in the books that you need to take care of." And one morning, I got the crew out in the field, and we were out there, and one of my guys that worked for me said, "Mr. Irvin, something wrong with you." And I'm like, "Man, what are you talking about?" He said, "Something ain't right." And I said, "Dude, I don't know what you on, what you tripping about." And I said, "Y'all want something from the store? I'm going to get something to drink." And gave me the order. I drove about 3/4 of a mile. And I was just in prayer and meditation. And that's normal for me. You could hear me singing almost at any time. And the tears just started flowing for no apparent reason. And the tears got so heavy I had to pull over.
Mm-hmm.
And I started praying, and I said, "Lord, what is this? What is this? What's going on? That I'm not weeping, but I can't stop the tears from flowing." And at the time, my phone rang, and it was my wife. And she said, "You in my spirit real deep. Why you crying?" I started looking around my car. You ain't in here.
So
So
somebody's spying.
I'm like, "I'm all right." And she was like, "No, you're not." And I said, "You know what? I hope I don't regret these words." And I didn't know what I was going to say. I really didn't. And I opened my mouth, and the words just poured out. I said, "I don't want to spend another day of my life without you." And she said, "I'll accept that under one condition." I said, "What's the condition?" She said, "You show up at my house and tell me face to face." I
Okay.
shut the job down early. I went to Kay's Jewelers, and I knew she liked rose gold. And I said, "I'm going to pick out this ring." And I said, "Lord, I shouldn't be putting this kind of boundary on you." I said, "But if this ring does not take much for sizing and she likes it, she the one." So I went to her home, and we talked, and we cried, and we talked, and we cried. And I said, "I ain't getting down on my knees because I might not be able to get up. I'm old now." And I gave her the empty box. And she looked at it like, "And what this supposed to mean?" And I said, "Well, you're looking at that, and you should be looking at this." And she said, "Well, put it on my finger." And the ring fit perfectly. And at that moment, I just like, "All right, you the one." So lo and behold, I think we are 19 months in now of being married.
Mhm.
And her favorite pastime of telling the story how we got married. We showed up at a church one Sunday, and she had no earthly idea because she carried one of them big old suitcases, Brahmin purses, them $1,100 purses. So you could actually put people in her purses she won't even know. So I had we got the marriage license, just knowing that it was going to happen. I knew all of her information, and I just dropped the marriage license in her purse on the way to church that Sunday, not knowing what was going to happen.
Mhm.
And the pastor called me up to do the closing remarks and the benediction, and he made a joke. He said, "Yeah, y'all, Elder Catchings, he in here with his fiance. I heard they getting married. Maybe he gonna tell us when the date is. Come on, Elder." And I got up and I said, "Well, since you won't put me on the spot, we're gonna get married right now." So her favorite line is, "My husband got up to do the benediction. 13 minutes later, I was Mrs. Catchings." So we got married, and when we talk about weddings, we had a church full of folk and they had to feed none of them. So,
Now that's okay. I'm gonna see if that still works and if the Lord see fit in my life.
so
That's an amazing story to share. That's a real live love story. Let me ask you a question. Between the how you met and the how you got married. What would you say about this woman, this relationship have you learned from marriage?
Proverbs tells us, 18th chapter, tells us the power of life and death lies within the tongue. I used to say this, I don't say it no more though. I promise you I don't say it no more. My wife was the female, well, should I say, is the female version of me. And that was very, very scary for me. Even though we were compatible in a lot of ways, we just clicked on all cylinders. We just clicked. Um, I remember when we first met, I had spent a few days with her. And I was like, I gotta go home. I live in Lafayette. I gotta go home. And she was like, what for? And I was like, I got first of all change clothes. I ain't gonna keep on washing the same stuff and putting the same stuff on. And her words to me was, don't leave yet. Be here when I get off work. And she left work early and went to Dillard's and bought me not a pair of pants, but an entire wardrobe. When she put the effort to let me know that I was wanted, it brought me back to my life being rejected by, from birth. Here I'm finally accepted. Somebody who's accepted me through addiction, through a bad marriage, through prison. She didn't care about any of that.
Hmm.
Her thing was, I see something in you and I can make you better. And if you allow me to help you, I will. And that part where iron sharpen iron, beware of the sparks. um, I found something out in being married, dealing with my wife before, during, and even presently. I understand I have a rose, but in order to pick the rose, you have to be cautious of the thorns. You will get stuck, but can you get past the pain to enjoy that rose?
Can you give that to me one more time? You will get.
You will get stuck. Anytime you start to pick roses, the thorns, because there are a whole lot more thorns than there are roses. So when you pick the rose, you will get stuck. But can you get past the pain to enjoy the rose?
I think that's a good pausing spot because that's something to think about. We'll be right back with more of Grace Talks. Welcome back to Grace Talks. Let me make this turn in the conversation as we continue talking about various types of relationships and the relevancy to life that those relationships serve. Let's take a turn to business. So, how long would you say that you've been in the workforce or the business force of life? Just a general number. Can you guesstimate that? There's a reason for me asking.
Okay. I took my first job at 14 and a half years old. I've been working ever since. On Saturday, last Saturday, December 3rd, I celebrated 25 years in the telecommunications industry.
Okay.
So
Okay. So with that being said, the number of years, the 20 plus, 25 plus of telecom, 20 plus of telecom, and then 40 of working, would you say there have been people that you would say you were comfortable enough to call that you had a relationship or a connection with in the business format of life?
fortunately for me, I've always been visualized as a leader,
Okay.
and I've always been called upon for expertise in various areas. I do not climb telephone poles anymore. I have not for the last 3 years, and I still get phone calls from techs out in the field with problems. when they're on top of a pole.
Hmm.
Um, as far as me leaning to a certain individual, because I had been rejected most of my life, I had gotten to a point where I just drew back from people and I dealt with everybody accordingly. Um, how you come is how I deal with you. There were some people who had a little bit more impact than others, but I found out, especially in the workplace, when you draw close to people, it could be good, but mostly bad. So I've kind of stayed even keeled. Um, even on my job today, I'm reminded every now and again on the application they had nowhere I had to be your friend. We're here for a common cause to get a job done. My favorite motto at work, especially when it is very, very hard, a difficult task, if it was easy, anybody could do it. I'm here because it's hard. And I accept those challenges, not cussing and fussing like I once did, but I accept that as, Lord, I thank you that you trusted me with this assignment. So
Okay.
when I run across a situation, but people, I kind of deal from a business standpoint because two things I don't do, or three, I don't bring church to work, I don't bring home to work. And after I spend 40 plus hours a week with you, after I get off work, I really don't want to see you.
Okay.
Um, but there are some people who I look into a little bit, different than others. Um, this is a blessing. 2 weeks ago, two back-to-back days, two of my coworkers accepted Christ as their personal savior based upon what they say. Let me say that again. Based upon what they say, I'm gonna say it one more time for the people in the back. Based upon what they say, how I live my life and how I carry myself. They wanted to be connected to Christ because they felt like nothing rattled me. Yeah, I get rattled, but do I show it and lose my witness? So I try to carry myself at all times according to the Bible. Do it unto man as you're doing it unto God. And even when situations are rough, I pray my way through it and keep it moving. But I get along with everybody if that makes sense. There's not nobody that I can say I hate. There are a couple of people on my job. If I don't have to work with them, I give God all the praise, glory, and the honor. But in the event that I have to work with them, um, it's one of these things I like to say. There are two type of people in this world: people who pray with and for you, and people who keep you praying. So when I have those encounters at work, I say, "Okay, Lord, you're telling me I need to go and pray."
So that means that you never allowed yourself a vulnerable side to uh between boss, co-workers, employees, anything of that nature.
That would be a lie. I got fired from Mountain Bell, which is the same company as Quest Communications. I got fired from Quest,
Okay.
which is the same company as CenturyLink. I got fired from CenturyLink. Now, all of those was the same companies. They just switched name over time. I got fired from Mountain Bell for picking up a 6'4.5" supervisor and putting him up against the wall and telling him how I felt. And of course, security escorted me out the door. But because of the labor, union that we had at the time, I was reinstated. And actually, we became pretty good friends after that.
The stuff
um,
you do. The stuff
um,
you do.
I was working prior to me going to Colorado and getting in telecom. I was doing water blasting in Gonzales for a company called Park M, and this was in my drug selling days. And you might work 6 months and be off too. And it was one of those things that we had been off work for a month or so and had just got back to work. But I sell dope, so what I would do, okay, payday Friday on Wednesday, I'd start issuing out credit.
Okay.
I would give them a little piece to let them try it out, if you will. But you paying me back. You just don't know it. And so came payday, I had so much money to collect from my drugs and what I sold. I didn't worry about my paycheck.
Wow.
But my paycheck was 30 hours, 30 overtime hours short. And when I finally looked at my paycheck, I walked in the office and I told the head guy, I said, hey man, my check 30 hours short, and he went ham on me. He cussed me out and told me he ain't had time to deal with this, that, and the other, and used his own language. And at that moment, I didn't say anything. I just walked outside, walked to my car, grabbed my 357 with an 8-inch barrel, walked back in the office and shot in the ceiling and said, ain't nobody going nowhere till I get my money. So he paid me, he wrote his personal check. They overnighted me a check Monday, and on the next pay period, I got them 30 hours again. So I got paid 3 times for them 30 hours. Now, the crazy part, the guy that I truly did not get along with, they didn't fire me for that. They fired me for beating up a supervisor on the job in the plant. Well, the deal was if you get fired at a plant, you have to walk home. So he fired me on the plant. So I said, I ain't walking home. I was at Dow Chemical and Plaquemine. Gonzalez way too far. So I just thought of something. I said, well, if I go up there and beat him up, they're gonna fire the whole company. So I went to where he was, and he was on the second level, and I whooped him down the first level. And now I got fired for that, but he did too.
Oh, man, come on.
So, but I didn't have to walk. So after I was, released and exonerated from my charges, from being in prison, I walked into the office because when I came home, everybody, man, go back over there. They'll hire you back. They'll hire you back, man. You was a good worker. So I walked in there, and now he's the head man. And when he came out the office, I looked at him like, oh, this ain't gonna work. So I turned around and walked out the door, and he almost beat me out the door.
The
And he
same
said,
man that you had to
that I
fight.
beat up. Yeah. And he said, Irvin, I'm gonna give you your job back, but you gotta promise me something. I said, what? He said, you don't beat nobody up on my job, and you don't walk in here shooting in the ceiling. If you could promise me you could do that, you're hired.
I almost want to say I have to ask this question. I almost want to I, I'm at this point to say hearing those stories you would almost be guaranteed that you're going to have your own business because it's so many um what I don't know if that is or if that was one of, but would you say you have a defining moment to why you chose to go into business on your own? Whether
Actually,
it's the previous business or the current business.
I was forced into going into business of my own.
Okay. How
When
do you
I was fired from the phone company, but I did know about contracting as a telephone contractor. I didn't know about it, but I wanted the stability. But once I got fired, that ended that stability. But then every contract company that was tied to the company in Colorado wanted me all over the country. And as you know, I spent several years of traveling all over the country, projects 3 to 6 months at a time over the road, where basically my car was my home. I slept in a hotel every night, but as far as having a home base to say, hey, this is home, I didn't have that because I went from one project to the next. So um, even prior to that, going into business of who's moving you, uh, being I wouldn't say a victim, being a survivor of Katrina and coming into Houston, there was just opportunities. And I started hustling at U-Haul. And what I mean by that, I would actually go to the nearest U-Haul store, and I didn't do anything wrong. I went to the management
Mhm.
and I said, hey, I got a job, but it ain't the job that I really want. And do you mind if I just ask the people who rent trucks, can I help them load and unload their furniture? And the question came one day, a guy walked in, and then I said, excuse me, sir, can I ask you a question? He said, I don't have no money. I said, I'm not asking you for no money. Please hear my question. He said, what's your question? And I said, who's moving you? And he said, "Excuse me." I say, "Who's moving you? You coming to get a truck, you moving. Who's your mover?" And he said, "You know what? You are." So that's where the name "Who's Moving You" came from.
Wow. I promise you, you've never told me that story.
And
I've
you did my
never heard.
website.
Yes. And I've never heard that story before. Go ahead.
Yes, that's how the name came up. Who's moving you? Because that was the original question that I asked. And of course, that grown until I left the state of Texas and actually kind of passed it down to you, not pass who's moving you down, but pass the format down to you. And you was, successful for a season with that as well. The thing is, the hardest part about being in business, and it's even 10 times worse today, is finding the people to actually work not for you, but with you. In business, you have to understand you don't hire people to work for you. You hire people to work with you. The problem why businesses fail today because we forget the people at the bottom who holds us up at the top. You have to reward those people. If that means I have to pick you up to bring you to work to help make my money, that's what I got to do. If I got to feed you and your family to help you make my money, that's what I got to do. The problem is people will tell you come pick me up and won't even come outside. And I ain't got a problem with you not coming. Don't have me drive 50 minutes out of my way to pick you up and you know you're not coming. That's my problem. So,
I'm with you on that.
going into business, the moment you stop looking for people to work with you, it is a team effort. I don't care what position you hold, CEO, COO, without all of the other people, you are no OO. So, treat people how you want to be treated because even right now in my current business role, I'm doing everything from the bottom. So as I bring people in, I will bring them in not based upon a format from a company, but I'll bring them in based upon personal experiences. This is what I experienced when I came to this type of inspection. This is what I experienced when I talked to these people about this. And I'm trying to make it easy where they don't have to talk to the people who's giving me the contract. All you have to do is go out there, handle yourself accordingly for the inspection. But I can't know that if I don't do that. So in order to grow a company, you can't start, okay, I got $1 million and I want to drop this million and talk bad to you and try to give you a format of something I do not know. In the workforce, the worst thing you can do is bring in a supervisor who know nothing about what the employees are doing. I've seen it day in and day out. You can't bring somebody in because he's your friend, don't know jack about what they're doing, and tell him to lead people. It will not work because they will have situations in the field that a book can't teach you. Only experience can.
Hey, if I if I didn't have a business, that would have me sit down and really analyze and get myself together. But I'm glad that you prepared me some years ago on starting a business and some of the things that I would have to face, the ups and downs, especially in the moving business. That hey, this is what you're going to endure. Get prepared for this. This is how you do this. This is how you pay. This is how you treat. This is how you show up. Things of that nature. And so I do know now, and we will have to revisit that so you could really do a podcast on business, the ins and out, because you're
Let
very
me
wise.
throw this side note in. You can't be afraid to fail. Here's one of them cliches that you was telling your audience about. A scary man can't gamble, and a jealous man can't work. Ice Cube said it in one of his songs. If you're scared, go to church. If you are not willing to take a chance on you, how can you expect somebody else to? My key ingredient to my success today, not because I've won at every time I got into a fight, is because I kept getting back up round after round and kept fighting. Every business venture I had till this day have failed. All of them was not my fault. but I'm better prepared for intelligent inspections because of the failed businesses. If you think Thomas Edison mastered the light bulb the first time, do your research. Michael Jordan was cut his junior year in high school, only to become one of the greatest of all times because just because he got cut, he didn't stop shooting baskets.
Mhm.
If you want to be successful, you got to keep plugging at it. To chop down a tree, you don't take the axe one time and hit it. You got to keep chopping till it falls.
I hope y'all heard that because I got it. We'll be right back. We're back on Grace Talks with our wonderful guest, Hervin Catchings, extraordinaire. Uh, we're discussing the subject of relationships, and so far we've covered family relationships, we've dealt with romantic relationships, we've dealt with business relationships. Now we will deal with spiritual relationships. And if at all possible, would you say that you've had a spiritual relationship for quite some time? Would you say that would have something to do with your family relationship with your grandmother creating that, or was it someone else? I'll let you dive into that, and then if you know of anyone else that contributed. Actually, I do know. I'll let you tell the story, but I do know of someone else who contributed to the pursuit of this relationship based upon um, your activity in church. So I'll let you have the floor.
Please share. Please share.
Well, I was privy to a conversation with you in the past where you talked about the importance of music um, in your love or your passion with your spiritual relationship, and due
Hmm.
to that, she was um, excellence of music. We're talking about the late and the great Geraldine Washington. I'm gonna call her a goat. I'm gonna call her a goat. Now, I don't know how many generations have heard that name before, but yeah, if you had one encounter. So anyway, the beginning of your spiritual relationship as well as the pursuit and the contributions.
Geraldine Gwendolyn Madeline Wright Washington. The 1970s, 80s, into the 90s, up until the early 2000s, but especially in the 70s and the 80s. If you knew anybody in gospel in New Orleans, she was a household name. Everybody knew who Geraldine Wright was. Her work spoke for itself. Um, Early on, at the age of 7, I got thrown up. I think it was Pastor Fred Newt, if memory serves me correctly, picked me up to say my first Bible verse in church.
Okay.
So the root of me and gospel actually started in the home. As I shared with you, we were drugged every church. Um, in my teenage years, I got rebellion, and even as I got off, as I shared with you earlier about my life of addiction, but even I made a promise to God when I was incarcerated, and I believe that that opened doors to my release. And I just fell on my face one day and I said, God, if you're who you say you are, I don't deserve to be here. If you let me out, I'll serve you to my dying day. Less than 90 days later, I was a free man. I went from Angola, Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola, which was once known as the bloodiest prison in America, to Broad Street to finish my last 75 days of my incarceration. I went
That's
from
Orleans Parish Prison.
Yes, I went
Okay.
from maximum security prison in the state of Louisiana to a work release camp in New Orleans where I slept at the jail at night, but I went to work every day for my last 75 days of my incarceration, nothing short of God. I don't know if that had ever happened before, and I don't believe it has ever happened since. Um, but there was a time, even after accepting my calling into the ministry, and that led up to me accepting my calling. But let me dive into that real quick. I was working for CenturyLink at the time, and I was in a guy's house repairing his jack, and we were talking, and he said, "Hey man, I hope I don't offend you, but the Lord told me he called you to preach." Nice talking to you, buddy. I'm out. In that same week, I was going into a Safeway supermarket. Safeway is known in Colorado, a big supermarket chain on Ninth and Corona. I'll never forget it. And I couldn't tell you what this guy looked like. And he walked past me and, hey, how you doing? He said, hey, man, you know the Lord called you to preach, right? Man, you tripping. I went on in Safeway and kept it moving. That Friday night, the late, great Reverend Dr. Jules Earl Smith, who was my father in the ministry, who just recently passed within the last 2 months. It was his anniversary, and his nephew came up from Baton Rouge. And I'm from the streets. This dude had been mean mugging me. I was in the choir stand the entire service. He kept giving me this certain look to the point I got to a place, you know what, after church, I know we in church, but man, this dude here, he mugging me. I'm gonna step to him. He gotta tell me why he looking at me. I
Mm-hmm.
need to know what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Did I sleep with your wife? Did you know what? You gotta talk to me,
Oh,
partner.
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So I walked out of the choir stand straight to him, and he had the biggest smile on his face. And he said, I knew you was gonna step to me. He said, but I wanted you to. And I'm like, can you explain to me why you kept staring at me? He said, you remember me leaning over the pastor and whispering something to his ear, and both of us looked at you. And I said, yeah. He said, I was asking Pastor, had you accepted your calling? Nah, you tripping too. The following Friday night, somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., I woke up out of a deep sleep and I started crying uncontrollably. And I'm like, okay. And I called Dr. L. Renard Catch. Now, if it's 2 o'clock in Denver, it's 3 o'clock in New Orleans. And he answered his phone. He said, yeah, what's going on? I said, man, we need to talk. And he just burst out laughing. And I said, nah, man, you
Really?
laughing? This ain't funny. Man, we need to talk. He said, first of all, calm down. He said, the Lord had already prepared me. I said, prepared you for
Whoa.
what? He said, the Lord had already told me you're going to call me in the wee hours of the morning. So I guess this is the call. I said, to tell you what? He said, first of all, calm down. Do not call your pastor right now. Call your pastor Monday, set up a meeting with him one on one, and tell him the Lord has called you to preach.
Wow.
So after I got off the phone with my brother, I sat on the side of the bed. Oh, and me and God, we had a fight. We had a knockdown, drag out. I ain't doing it. I know you got me out of jail. I told you I would serve you. I cut the church grass. I shoveled the church snow. I sang in the choir. I helped the elderly. I volunteer. I ain't preaching. Well, 21 and a half years later, we found out who won that fight.
Yeah.
And when I did call a meeting with my pastor, I walked into his office and I sat down and I just started crying. And he was like, okay, you done? And I'm like, you don't even know what's going on. He said, boy, you're the only one in the entire church that don't know you've been called to preach. But I guess you know now. And one Wednesday night doing Bible study, my feet left me. Well, I say I just stood up and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? And me and Pastor caught eye contact, and he, as the old folks say, begged for me. And when I walked up, he said, Brother Catchings got something he want to say to y'all. We've met. And at the time, I didn't know what the scripture was, but I know where it is now.
Mhm.
Romans 1 and 16. As much as in me, I want to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ into you. And I didn't know those words was coming out of my mouth. And the title of my very first sermon was Have Some. No, thank you. Come from Matthew 4, 1 through 10. The story when Jesus was tempted by the devil. Every time the devil said have some, Jesus told him, no, thank you. And in a
Wow.
nice way of term. And I have had some very unique titles um, of preaching. The Lord has blessed me with uh, Fix My Plate title sermon. It will come out in the wash,
Mhm.
to name a few. And some of them I'd have to go back and kind of remember. Every now and again the Lord will bring things to my memory about certain titles that he's given me to catch the crowd's attention.
Mhm.
But the bottom line was, even though I had been church hurt, I quit the church, I quit going to church. I didn't quit my relationship with God. But let me share this with you. People will hurt you. It ain't a if it's going to happen, it's a when it's going to happen. Are you resilient enough to bounce back? Because all that we go through in this life has no comparison to Jesus being up on Calvary's cross with nails in his hand, nails in his feet, pierced in his side. That has no comparison. And as Paul said to the church in Rome, I reckon, for some of you young folks, y'all may not know what that means. Google it, I reckon. I have taken the time to ponder. I've thought about this for an extended period of time. I've recollected on some things in my life, and I reckon the troubles of these times is not to be compared to the glory of God. But the true experience I had, as I shared earlier, was February 2nd of 2020, when I grasped hold to Jesus for real. And let me share this. My deliverance from crack has only been 20 years and 1 month. But I've been preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ for 21 years and 4 months, 6 months this year. Matter of fact, the 19th will be 21 years and 6 months.
Okay.
So God didn't clean me up to have me to stand before his people. He called me, then he qualified me, and then he cleaned me up in the process. This foolishness, well, when I get right, I'm going to go to church. You ain't going to get right, because if you could do it, you would have done it. I'm at a place now, I trust God in all things. And for you married folks that think marriage is easy, I told you earlier about the thorns and the roses. On July 17th of last year, I had the privilege of preaching my daughter's funeral. And to walk out of the pulpit and to sit next to my wife was nothing but the grace of God. And even now, as we go through our trials and our tribulations, and holidays is coming, and this is our only second year without her, my wife has brought me to a place at times I wanted to take off running and leave the car.
Mhm.
But I trusted God. And I even had the nerve to ask God, Lord, why me? And he said, I designed you and prepared you for this challenge. No cross, no crown.
So your purpose it sounds like, and I wanted to interject here. It sounds like you're answering my final question in this segment that without a spiritual relationship, other areas will be affected in a negative connotation or in a manner which you may feel that you cannot handle life. But with having a spiritual relationship and a spiritual connection, it blends into every other aspect of life.
Okay, let's look at it from this standpoint. How many people impact our lives on a daily basis?
Numerous.
Okay. And we need all of those people to impact our lives for whatever roles that they play.
Yes.
Okay. We need the people in finance to be able to impact our lives from a financial standpoint. We need the people at work to be able to influence us to get our job done, to meet the daily tasks
Right.
of the project at hand. We need our family to be on the same page to impact us for the love that we need for family. And for me, I need my wife to impact me in a certain way so I can feel like I'm a husband. With that relationship with Christ, he fulfills all of those needs. Now, I was once told that I was no good, I was this, that, and I was the other. And I may have been, but I was preaching. As I am right now, I'm heavily involved into my church.
Hmm.
And what I shared with the person, if I'm all of this without Christ, I mean with Christ, if I'm all of this with Christ, what would I be without him?
Understood.
So
Understood.
when we include Christ first, and let me touch something real quick. Thank you, Lord. Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first. I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna stop right there. He didn't say you couldn't have second, third, fourth, and fifth. He says seek him first. If you put God first, everything else is going to manifest.
So his relationship is the most important relationship.
Most important, I know the Lord. I know Shaquille O'Neal, but do Shaquille know me?
So, in a general sense of anybody, are you saying that effective relationships of family, business, romantic depends on spiritual?
Whoa, great question. Let me put it to you like this. Thanksgiving Day, I went to spend some time with some family. I had not been around them unless it was a funeral in 30 years. But being who I am as a representative of Christ, I had to pray before I went around them. So the Lord could show me how to prepare, how to open my mind, my heart to deal with them. Let's bring it back closer. I live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. To go to New Orleans to go around family that I grew up with and we still cool. I have to pray when I leave home. Lord, prepare me for what I'm about to walk into. Prepare me for them. Prepare them for me. When I go to work, I have to pray, Lord, I'm going to work today. I'm not feeling my best. I don't know the crew that I'm working with, but prepare them for me. Prepare me for them. I have to pray before I go everywhere. When my wife says some things to me, I have to pray before I respond. It may not be what I said, but maybe how I said that can dictate the whole circumstance and situation. And if you go to church and ain't praying before you go to church, you're making a grave mistake. Lord, as I go to your house, prepare me for a mind changing word, a life changing word from you. The preacher may not say it the way I want him to say it, but let his words speak to my spirit. Let the choir sing a song that's going to stir up the gift in me. If you don't keep Christ first, you are bound to fail. That's like preparation. If you don't, if you fail to plan, if you don't plan, you plan to fail. If you don't have a plan set out to succeed, you already failing. You already planning to fail. So how can you sit back and say Christ is the head of your life or whatever you choose to be? I'm gonna let you make that decision. I'm gonna take Joshua's word. You choose ye this day whom you gonna serve. Now I'm making my choice. Why do I serve Jesus Christ? I'm glad you asked. Because when I was in Louisiana State Penitentiary and called upon the name of Jesus, he answered me. I ain't talking about what grandmama brought me to church and made me stand up in front of all of them people. I'm not talking about somebody else's religion. I'm not talking about Geraldine Wright and the solos that she taught me to sing and made me sing in the choir. I'm talking about the personal encounter with Christ for myself. That's why I teach and preach Jesus today, because every single time I call upon the name of the Christ, he saves me. It may not be the way I like it, may not be the way I want it, but the end result, I'm saved.
Wow. I think that's well said. I feel as I wrote in my book, it had to happen, and talked about my relationships. I realized that every relationship, successful or failed, had a lesson for me to learn. Whether that lesson was about other people or about myself, each relationship provided me a lesson that enhanced me for my future. If we're not able to sit back and evaluate when something ends or is troubled, as you just said, the praying before work relationship, going home to your spouse, or even going to church, if we're not willing to evaluate that, then there's something really wrong with us, wouldn't you say?
Um, you can't grow without evaluation. And for a long time in my life, I just ran with whatever, however. And then one day I realized that I was on a merry-go-round. It go round and round, but you ain't going nowhere. You still in that same spot. You gonna turn around, see the same people standing there waving at you, hey, and you can't wait till you get around to the same, hey.
Yeah.
So it's like a hamster on a wheel. A hamster moves 100 miles an hour, ain't going nowhere until you start to evaluate yourself. And a hamster is a great place to start. When are you going to get off the wheel? For me, what had to happen for me, regardless of how terrible a situation was, I had to go in my bathroom, clean my mirror, make sure it was crystal clear that I could see me, take everybody else out of the equation, and ask the question, what part did I play?
Yes, sir.
And when I started realizing the parts that I played could have changed the outcome of the event, I started changing my role. I'm sure I
I
did.
heard a song way back in the day, Are You Ready to Change? Think about that. Well, I have to say, this has been absolutely amazing to experience the conversation of relationships and the relevancy of those relationships with you, sir. Hervin Catchings, you have gone above and beyond in this conversation. Um, just in case someone wants to continue to listen, follow you, hear your voice, even connect with you, reach out, email, whatever. How can someone catch up with Hervin Catchings?
Um, my email is hcatchings, and that's like catching a ball, CATCHINGS at intelinspect.com. Again, that is H Catchings at intelinspect.com, or you can reach me by Facebook, Hervin Catchings. The H is pronounced silent, so it is HERV as in Victor IN, last name Catchings
Okay.
at on Facebook.
Okay. Well, I really do thank you and appreciate you for taking out this time of your busy schedule because you mentioned quite a few irons. So
Yes.
I'm just grateful that we were able to share this time together. At the end of every episode, I have built with my following something known as the grace moment. This is usually the moment where either myself or our special guest will take a moment to share an inspirational thought of the day, a song, a cliche, a mantra that they follow, a provoking to action, whatever your final words may be, something where you from the heart share with our audience. And it doesn't have to be all that long because we have come to the end of the episode, but just something from the heart that we can take as a nugget and take through life. The floor is yours, sir. And again, I thank you.
Um, First of all, let me thank you for this privilege and this opportunity to be a part on tonight. That God had, touched your heart to ask me to be a part. I'm gratefully appreciative uh, to be able to share my life story in the form of relationships. And as I've shared from top to bottom, the good, the bad, and the ugly of who Irving Catchings really is, if there's anything that I would like to say, somebody had the audacity to write these words down and put some music to it. I've had some good days. I've had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and some sleepless nights. But when I look around and I think things over, all of my good days outweigh my bad days, and I won't complain. Thank you again, Terrence, Grace for Life Enterprises, for having me. And if there's anything that I would say, in spite of it all, I won't complain. Don't do a bit of good.
Well, audience, there you have it. We'll be in touch on the next episode of Grace Talks. And remember to grow with grace. Have a good one.
If you have a question or would like us to discuss a specific topic, Grace Talks wants to hear from you. You can email us at gracetalks@graceforlife.com. That's grace_talks@grace-4-life.com.